People who have fainted, what happened? Story 1. I fainted since I was a kid at random. It's called vasovagal syncope. Sometimes there's specific triggers and other times my body just goes haywire. It starts with a rise in body temperature, then my eyes start to go black, my heart races, ears ring, I pour sweat and then boom. I fainted all over at this point, but as I get older I'm much better at managing pre-syncope, which is what they call the onset of the symptoms. If you lay down, sometimes it normalizes blood pressure and it goes away, and other times you just faint lying down, which is still better than cracking your head somewhere. Story 2. I do not produce the hunger hormone, so I forget to eat until my body reminds me it's time to eat. I have a reminder on my phone to eat, but when I'm busy, I turn it off and carry on with what I was doing, then I forget. This compounds throughout the day, some days, until night rolls around and I haven't had anything to eat since the previous night. I get hypoglycemic, I stand up, I get lightheaded, I go down, I wake up a few seconds later twitching with a sore face, often with my dog licking my ear. Story 3. I haven't fainted before, but I almost did. Noise around you start to fade away and start to echo kind of, and your vision turns to black slowly, and you become lightheaded. Story 4. I have a heart condition, so before I was medicated I used to faint a lot. It started off with my vision going dark around the edges, then blacking out completely, then my limbs would get weak and next thing I'd know I was waking up on the floor. Story 5. POTS. I stand up, and my heart rate goes from 80 to 120, and everything goes hot and gray before I hit the floor. Most of the time, I hit a couch bed, or my husband catches me. Story 6. It was too hot and I fell to the floor at a bus stop. My boyfriend at the time did nothing and let me fall and hit my head. A girl from across the street came over and talked to me when I came round, reassured me and said she's fainted loads of times. She was very supportive. Story 7. Vasovagal. Apparently the veins and arteries don't constrict in the legs fast enough to maintain equal pressure, causing blood to go to the legs. Happens to old people who stand up to fast. Pilots wear compression suits to prevent it. I know young people who have it. Didn't happen to me till my late 40s. Story 8. Food poisoning. Was kind of funny afterwards. Got done eating a burger from the pit, sat down and turned on local news. News said to not eat meat due to recall from exact place I had bought burger meat. Anyway, I got up to help my wife in middle of night who also ate the meat. She was puking and asked to go to the ER. I went to get our infant daughter to load up to go to ER. I woke up on ground by her crib with wife screaming at me and trying to wake me up. Wife ended up driving me to the ER. Story 9. I fainted several times in my life. Sometimes it was physiological dehydration and/or lack of nutrition and/or sleep deprivation, and sometimes it was psychological stress, anxiety, suicidal, or depression. Story 10. Wow, I've fainted 3 times in my life, so I think I can speak on this. I'd gotten used to it that I know when it will come. For me, it gets very bright like my vision's overly saturated, then I get really weak until it just turns to black. Story 11. I have vasovagal syncope, fainting because of triggers like emotional stressors or seeing blood. It happens maybe a couple times a year, generally triggered by medical, so I guess Eve fainted a lot. Most recently I fainted reading about the possible conditions linked to a certain blood test result. The time before that was when I absently read an article about plastic surgery. It is an extremely strange sensation. Story 12. Heat exhaustion. I was standing in direct sunlight, it was hot, and apparently my body decided that and I passed out for a few seconds. Luckily I was fine afterwards. Story 13. I stepped on a loose flagstone and rolled my ankle so bad that the lateral ankle bone touched the ground. I thought for sure I snapped something for that to happen. I limped over to a little wall and put my head down and started breathing real deep to try and block out some of the pain. No dizziness or anything, just woke up and my girlfriend and my dog are kneeling over me, worried as if that's what death is like. Ain't so bad. Postscript. Nothing was broken, torn, pulled or sprained, swelled just a tiny bit and a little bit of bruising, no pain, was right as rain in a day or so. It was pretty uncanny. Story 14. What happened? The ground jumped up and knocked me out. Seriously, I just got dehydrated on a really hot day. I got tunnel vision and then NO vision and then the ground hit me in the face. Story 15. I had just had a pilonidal cystectomy, for your own sake. Don't Google that, and had an opening filled with gauze on my lower back just above my. Enough time had passed that according to doctor's instructions it was time for the gauze to be removed. My mom pulled it out and she said it was similar to that circus trick where a clown pulls a long scarf out of its throat. The gauze just kept going and going. Once it was all out I started gingerly walking back towards my bed, but apparently the sudden removal of a large item from my body triggered some sort of shock response. I felt like I was going to puke. I started sweating buckets in an instant. Everything started going black and I heard an incredibly loud ringing in my ears. I started to go down but my parents caught me and got me back to my bed. That whole recovery process sucked. I was pretty much bedridden for 2 straight weeks. My strongest memories of that period were that instance of almost fainting, and playing The Last of Us, which came out the day after my surgery, summer 2013, weird time. Story 16. People usually faint from stuff like standing up too fast, being dehydrated, overheating, low blood sugar, or getting hit with a sudden shock or strong emotions. Sometimes you feel dizzy or sweaty right before it happens. Most times, you just pass out for a bit and then come back to normal. Story 17. At age 10, I discovered I could make my face super red by holding my breath and clenching really hard. I was showing off this skill to some classmates. Then I was slowly waking up on the classroom floor. no one got the teacher or anything because they thought I faked it. Story 18. I 100-pound 20F at the time was at a store checking out and suddenly remembered thinking how hot it was when I felt sweat dripping down my forehead, back, etc. Very uncommon even in most grueling workouts. As my vision started to go black and white I remember thinking I just need them to hurry up so I can leave. Guy finished and I took 3 steps to the front door and passed out falling forward but luckily no broken nose, injuries, etc. I did pee my pants though, which is apparently a symptom of passing out. Woke up on the floor and passed back out. Paramedics came. My blood pressure had dropped to 6,440 by the time they got there. Happened again that summer. Never figured out why, but even today 29F my blood pressure is still 90/70 on a normal day. Also never went back to that T-Mobile location LMAO. Story 19. Mammogram, sort of, was getting ready for surgery on a breast lump. Benign. Doctor wanted the lump marked. Unfortunately, me being a DD and compressed in the mammo for 20 minutes wasn't the best combo. The tech released the compressed all at once which caused all of my blood to refill. My lights out for me. Woke up on the floor with a doctor over me. I guess it took 2 smelling salts to get me back. Pissed myself, so that sucked. Story 20. I accidentally inhaled powdered sugar that was on my French toast. First time having it on my French toast at a spend the night when I was about 10. I knew I was going to faint, could feel it happening. Woke up with a plate of French toast with both powdered sugar and maple syrup on it dumped all over me. Story 21. Watching TV. Suddenly felt extremely dizzy, lightheaded, sort of nauseated. Had the brilliant idea of going outside on 14-degree weather, after dark, to see if it would help me feel better. It made me worse, so I turned around, walked into my front door. Suddenly it's like all the noises in the room slowed down and echoed as my vision faded to black and I could no longer stand. Then I felt amazing. I felt safe and warm and almost euphoric and saw gold sparkles in a dark space. I thought I saw sparkly gold figures around me in a sparkly hazy darkness. Then I woke up and I was on the floor in my living room with my husband hovering over me, looking terrified. Story 22. I was 16 and home alone with extreme cramps. I got out of the shower and opened the door to the hallway, then it was lights out. I think I came to pretty quickly but it shook me up. Story 23. Anorexia and sharp objects is no good. First time, I was dissecting a rat and didn't know that it was happening that day plus had a migraine brewing. Second time, at the gynecologist we were discussing me getting an IUD and the idea of a needle piercing my cervix had me out. Story 24. Walked 3 miles to work, worked a 10-hour shift, got off and donated plasma. Then walked 3 miles home in 95 temperatures with 96 humidity. I was 2 blocks from home and I sat down because things got fuzzy and hard to breathe. Next thing I know things went black and I woke up to an ambulance. Story 25. I was getting set up to get into an MRI machine for a scan, and the nurse randomly pulled out a really long needle that I was completely not expecting, and was like, "We need to inject contrast dye. Give me your arm," and then I remember her and her assistant shaking me a bit and asking if I was okay. I was already sitting down thankfully, but yeah, instantly went super pale and fainted. I'm normally fine with needles too as long as I know they are going to happen in advance. Story 26. I'm a diabetic. I didn't realize my blood sugar was tanking. I sat in my car at work for half an hour. I came to, drank my emergency soda, and never told a soul until now. Story 27. Some 5th graders at camp said, "Want to try this really cool thing? Breathe in and out quickly, and then it'll squeeze your neck for a moment." I was the 16-year-old counselor, so I dug deep into my sense of responsibility and said, "Yeah, that sounds cool, but I can't let you do that to another kid. You can try on me instead." I woke up on the floor surrounded by some very frightened children. Story 28. I collapsed in a store after seeing a movie with my wife. Of course I hit the edge of a shelf and woke up in a hospital receiving 3 stitches in my head. They determined it was probably dehydration as I only had popcorn and Coke in the preceding 5 hours. Story 29. I've fainted twice in life. First time 16 years old. I ran 10 miles in the middle of the day in Florida summer. I got home and kneeled down to look at something my mother was showing me on the computer. Next thing I know, I woke up on the floor to her yelling my name. Second time last summer. I got some unknown GI bug from my then partner and thought I could drive home. A severe wave of nausea overtook me. The world started spinning, and I woke up in the median of the Ohio Turnpike. The car was totaled, and I spent 3 days in the hospital, but the only injury to me was a scratch on my eyebrow. Story 30. I had a late miscarriage and after delivery, I bled too much, and fainted in the shower at the hospital. Luckily, I kinda knew it was coming, so I sat down on the bench in the shower, so like I didn't injure myself. I also pulled the emergency cord before I went out, so my nurse got to me really quick. Story 31. I once fainted from overexercising and dehydration. I could feel the dizziness slowly creeping up on me, and little by little my vision was turning black, sort of like a vignette effect. And well, after that I just blanked out, I guess, because I thought I had fallen asleep, but then when I was woken up I still felt a bit dizzy. Story 32. One time I went to get my septum pierced. I was sitting up 1 minute with a piercer in front of me stabbing a needle through my septum. The next minute he's behind the table, him in his arms and missing a shoe. He apparently had to jump over the table to catch me. My shoe flew off as I was falling backwards. The other times I've passed out were from blood draws. Story 33. I stood up from the couch, walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water after a long bike ride, and blinked, but my eyes stayed shut for a few seconds. In those few seconds, I heard a loud bang. I opened my eyes and was confused because my mom was no longer standing in front of me. She looked like she was hanging upside down from the ceiling. I then realized I was looking at the ceiling, and laying flat on my back on the floor, and she was standing over me, asking if I was okay. Then, the pain started creeping into my head. The loud bang was my head hitting the floor. I was more confused than in pain. Stay hydrated, especially when stressed. Story 34. I have fainted many times in my life. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere, but I have learned to be more aware of what can cause it. It is a combination of any of the following: not eating enough, being overheated, and being dehydrated. I generally feel lightheaded and shaky, and sometimes I start sweating a lot before it happens. I have broken my neck, broken my wrist, broken my ankle, and I have had many bruises. Luckily, I haven't had no episodes aside from getting a little bit lightheaded in the past 3 years. Knock on. Story 35. Cut my finger on a potato peeler and got queasy standing there waiting for someone to come back with a band-aid. Next thing, I wake up on the ground looking up to some concerned faces. Story 36. I fainted 4 times in 1 year way back in high school. The doctor diagnosed me with frequent fainting syndrome or something stupid like that and never did anything about it. I haven't fainted since. I could tell I was going to faint about 2 seconds before it happened, then I would go numb and everything went black. It wasn't scary but more embarrassing for me. The only common denominator was I was standing for a while and probably smoked some weed at least a couple hours before, but I was standing walking smoking weed a lot in high school and after, so it was still weird when it did happen. Story 37. I was stood up mid-conversation and just went out. Woke up fully in the ER confused as with something like 8 doctors. Apparently they had struggled to wake me and I'd been a limp noodle for the entire Ambo ride. I was 15. Story 38. I have POTS, so if I stand too quickly or go up too quickly the world fades to darkness. I sometimes get massive headaches before and my heart races. My BP drops. It's a whole shebang. My heart rate spiked to 200 once just to keep me up. Didn't really help. Still crumpled like a folding chair. Was told this by the nurse. Taking lots of water helps a bit. Story 39. College. Woke up after a night of drinking, got up, went to the bathroom for a very long time, walked back to bed, made it halfway before I flopped to the ground. Story 40. I was a stupid kid standing with my knees locked, and I did it twice. The first time I smashed my face and broke my big buck teeth on a medical cart while visiting a relative in a care home. That was a fun day. When I came to, there was a circle of nuns clutching their rosaries over me. I think they thought I was dead. My face was full of blood. Only fainted once as an adult. I was in DKA in the ER, and a nurse was trying to put an 4 in me. I'd been told by other nurses that I have rolling veins, whatever those are, and over the years, some have really struggled. This time, it seemed to have gone well. Then the 4 started to ooze. The second I saw the blood, I mumbled I'm gonna puke, but didn't. I fainted dead away. Story 41. Woke up and skipped breakfast and had little to no drink either. Took a hot shower a little in the afternoon and started to feel woozy during. Knew it was time to get out soon. As I exit, my vision goes fuzzy and I feel my body get weightless. Then I fall. Would have stayed there but realized shortly after that my head was by the toilet. Story 42. I had a stick go through my hand playing in the woods with my brother and our friends. When I was 6 I looked at the inside my hand after my brother removed the stick and I blacked out. Story 43. Got up from my bed too quick. Vision started going dark. Questioned in my head why. Next thing I remember I woke up on the floor. How long I was out for, but I don't imagine too long. Story 44. I could never hold my weed, and my friend who was constantly smoking decided to take a stand. You just gotta push yourself out of your comfort zone. Nothing's actually going to happen. Just push through it. Go out and do. Let's go get burritos right now. So we did like 2 or 3 pots. Then we walked a few blocks to a burrito place. We grabbed menus and drinks and claimed an outdoor table to look over the menu. I felt terrible, like I knew for a fact that I was going to die. This wasn't regular weed anxiety. I was legit just crashing out. But my friend had a point. Nothing's going to happen, and it's time I established that and took control. He told me his order and I marched through the door like to place the order. There was nobody standing at the counter, and a bunch of workers just busy rushing around cleaning and stuff who didn't spot me. While I was trying to get someone's attention, I just couldn't do it anymore and sat down on a stool at the ordering area. By now I was in a cold sweat and not doing okay. I did in my pants, but it never felt more possible for no reason than in that moment. I sat down to collect myself. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground and the manager was standing over me asking if I was okay. I must have gotten an adrenaline rush from being startled or something, and I jumped to my feet and tried to play it cool. I was just like, oh no man, I'm fine, just had to get up, I don't know, I'm fine, thank you, I'm gonna go back outside. I'm not sure why, but this pissed the guy off. I think I was too convincing and made him think I was just horsing around, or maybe over-intoxicated or something. The guy yelled after me not to come back. My friend at the table saw me come out empty-handed and gave me a WTF. Look, he asked what happened and I was just like, I don't know, it didn't work, I think I might have passed out. He ended up bailing me out, ordering my food and got me an orange juice. He smoothed it over inside and told them I was anemic or I don't know, something that sounded like it made sense. I've had this happen before and I think it's just the perfect storm of getting no sleep, eating nothing, and some added stress. Super disorienting, and the crashing part is how I imagine it feels when you're dying. It was a terrible feeling, like at my core I just knew that I wasn't okay. Story 45 had a GI bug, liquids exiting every hole. Passed out in a puddle of my own making while running for the bathroom. I woke up in the shower, to my now wife cleaning me up to take me to the hospital. Gosh, she's an angel. Story 46. I was super dehydrated and didn't realize it. I stood up to go to the bathroom and I fainted. I came to so quickly that I thought I just got really dizzy. I laughed it off and thought it was my low iron. When I got up to go to the bathroom again, I passed out again. I started crawling to the bathroom and passed out again, so at this point I'm freaking TF out. So now I'm dehydrated, having a panic attack, and it's not a good combination. I hyperventilated so hard my hands curled up and I was like I'm having a stroke. Nope, just forgot to drink water then panicked. I had to spend the night in the hospital, and that was a fun bill to pay later. Story 47. IBS attack. Jumped out of bed, ran to the bathroom, woke up on the floor. According to my wife, when she woke up I was stood leaning on the bathroom door facing it, and when she said "Are you okay?" I very slowly fell over, falling between her chest of drawers and bedside table without hitting either of them. At which point one of our cats exploded out from under the bedside table and legged it down the stairs. Oh, and another time with an IBS attack, sat on the loo, felt dizzy, went to put my head between my legs and woke up on the floor. We had a towel rail in front of the loo and I banged my head on every rung, and fallen onto the scales, which when they turned on scrolled the word hello in bright blue text across the screen. So of course when I woke up and opened my eyes that hello was all I could see, thought for a moment I was seeing the simulation. Story 48. Felt faint while boarding a flight. No food all day, crowded airport, crowded plane, managed to make it to my seat and ask for some water. Next thing I knew we were in the air and I was holding on to a plastic cup with wet pants and shoes. I don't even recall being handed the water. Story 49. An 8-man SWAT team came through my hotel room door. After I opened it, staring down the barrel of a pistol is a different experience when there's 7 rifles behind it, and they all appeared in 1/16 of a second. Honestly, I think fainting was the smart move. My body made the right choice. I woke up in handcuffs with a cracked eye socket, but at least I woke up. Story 50. I was at a safety presentation for work. The doctor they had presenting was showing US pictures of all the injuries one could experience if they were careless. One of the subjects was a guy who got his leg caught in an elevator. As we discussed it, I realized I was super lightheaded and was going to pass out. Told the guy next to me and then woke up on the ground with everyone making fun of me. Story 51. First of all, a couple of things happen simultaneously. 1. My vision gets static. Why? Colorful pixels start at the corners and work inwards and everything slowly goes black. After 2. Noise sounds further and further away until I can't hear anything at all, almost like I'm underwater. 3. I get very sweaty and overheat. I usually spend what little strength I have before I pass out taking off any jackets or sweaters I might be wearing when I wake up. I'm clammy and freezing. 4. I slowly lose control of my body until it all goes limp, typically starting from my extremities and working in towards my torso. Every time I've fainted has been from stress. I fainted during class in high school, in first aid training, on the bus while reading a book, and while getting blood drawn, the only time someone actually acknowledged that I fainted, and a few other times. Story 52. My husband needed to get fluid drained from his very swollen knee. They did it using an ultrasound machine as a guide. I was too curious and watched the whole thing. The combination of seeing him stabbed by a giant needle, the fluid in a giant tube, and seeing the needle wiggling around on the screen was too much for me. Story 53. Was trying to help my mom after she had all her teeth extracted, helping her in the car afterwards and saw blood drip from her mouth. Out I went. Blood makes me woozy, but it being my mom sent me a bit too far. Story 54. I fainted while standing in line at the post office. They carried me outside and sent me home. At the time, I was just thinking that I'd have to stand in line again. Story 55. 1 minute I was sitting at the kitchen table. The next minute I opened my eyes on the kitchen floor. Total blackout. It was 14 years ago. Never happened before or since. Story 56. Lack of stamina. I was running when I was a kid after not running for a little over 5 years. No clue how I wasn't huge from no exercise. Boom, I was on the floor with 3 of my friends and the PHY ed teacher over me asking if I was okay. Story 57. It was right before I had a bad virus flu of some kind. I felt fine that morning, was at a bus stop and suddenly blacked out for a second and woke up sitting on the sidewalk. I called someone to pick me up and then was in bed with a fever for like 4 days. The other time was just medication that constantly made me feel dizzy and lightheaded until one day I was sitting at work and got tunnel vision and couldn't fight it off. Story 58. Empty stomach, social anxiety. And at the time I smoked unfiltered cigarettes and would save the butts, then use the remaining tobacco to roll my own cigarettes. Was smoking those at the time. I must have been 18. Story 59. If you mean what was the situation or what it feels like, so, both I faint when I donate blood. Doesn't matter how long I wait before standing up. I always pass out. Lol. I usually donate twice a year or so I always get someone to go with me. You lose peripheral vision, like you start seeing less and less from the sides until it consumes all and everything goes dark. You get cold, sometimes shaky. It really just feels like falling asleep, but in a second. Story 60. I fainted multiple times as a kid. We were away for summer, had to drive back for my sister's book sales, 2-hour drive, then standing in line on a hot day. I fainted standing in line. People made jokes, my sister pushed me, woke up in nurse's office and went on with my life. Mom in hospital, getting for put in, fainted. Nurses gave me smelling salts. Puked going home from that. Story 61 I used an asthma inhaler while standing up and completely blacked out. I still feel terrible to this day knowing the horror my mother must have felt watching me suddenly slump over the bathroom counter. Even more so when I woke up on the ground with her freaked out after she failed to fully break my fall. Story 62 ID donated blood dozens of times with no problem. But this time I did it while on my period. I felt totally fine as per usual and went to work. Suddenly I felt flush, then felt like I was going to vomit immediately. I scrambled my way towards the bathroom but collapsed against the hallway wall. Luckily there were tons of people around and I was fine, just embarrassed. Story 63 age 17, tall skinny kid. I had been sitting a while and stood up fast, turned to walk out of the room and blacked out, fell. As I landed I hit the base of my skull on a countertop edge. I landed on top of a glass-framed painting which was rested on the floor. Shatter the glass, home alone, called ambulance, went to ER, got sticks. Doctor said I likely was a bit low on blood, with growth spurts. Story 64 the military pumped me with a dozen shots of stuff. Typical in processing, I got super lightheaded a minute later and woke up on the floor. I drank some water from my canteen and they shuffled me off to the next in processing section. I guess I'll never know why, it hasn't happened since, maybe it was nerves. Story 65 everything goes black. I actually managed to grab the school lunch tray holder and didn't fall. Ended up I had tick fever, hospitalized a few weeks, 8th grade. Story 66 not sure if this is fainting but I had a bad cold and was getting over being sick. My nephew sent me something online that made me laugh really hard. And so I started to cough really hard and laugh until I woke up on the floor beside my chair. Story 67 mostly it's been because of heat stroke or awful period pain. There was one time when I passed out after a panic attack and one time when I felt dizzy and had to lie down on the sofa and then blacked out. I don't know what caused that one but it hasn't happened since. Story 68 it was Halloween of 2001. I was 16 and in high school. I was getting ready for school. My best friend and I decided to go in crisscross, outfit on, ties my sneakers, and sat while sitting on the edge of my bed felt my head begin to turn without control. I remember falling back into my bed and black out. I woke up with two paramedics standing over me and my father in the doorway. I had a grand mal seizure. I remember only the beginning and coming to. I had pushed one of the paramedics due to the along up and him being in my face while I lay flat on the floor. For an entire year I had to have MRIs and be on medication. While my driver's permit was suspended due to state laws, I have never had another grand mal seizure since. But it always worries me because once you have one they say you're more likely to have another. Story 69 my heart slowed down a little and stopped pumping blood up to my brain and my brain had a bit of a panic attack and shut down and took my body down with it, and I fell down and went boom, and lost consciousness for about 30 seconds. And when I came to there were people surrounding me and someone didn't call an ambulance and they thought maybe I was diabetic and I was really kind of out of it and it turned out that I have this disease where my blood pressure drops and my brain shuts down and I've had about 24 attacks so that's a lot of fun. I had a service dog who was trained to alert me to them, or find help for me, but he died. I have not found a replacement yet. Story 70 had a drink after a long hot day without eating at my meal at the cutest little restaurant in Italy. Thought I was going to vomit, got up and ran to the bathroom, asked a small old woman where the bathroom was, then felt the pressing feeling in tunnel vision, realized it wasn't a vomit situation, but rather a fainting one, and blacked out. Next thing I knew I was in a chair, clammy and sweating, while a waiter pours me a glass of water with Italian brand Splendor in it. Story 71 endo before I was diagnosed. Significant bleeding with my period and the pain of the cramps have made me faint a few times. One time, I was cooking with my husband and felt like cramps from my ribs to the bottoms of my feet and going through a tampon every hour or two. I was stirring a pasta sauce when I felt super woozy and dizzy like my head was swimming. TV static creeped into my vision, and my face and the top of my head felt really hot. I told my husband I felt like I would faint and he helped me over to the kitchen chair where I sat and put my head between my knees like they taught us in Sunday school. Kids fainted all the time between standing, singing, kneeling, standing again as I sat there. The static in my eyes kept creeping across my vision until I couldn't see. For me it wasn't like sleeping at all. I had no idea how long I sat there, but I've heard if someone is out for more than 20 seconds or so, start worrying. It's not like movies where you're out for hours or days at a time. I was vaguely aware of my breath labored and the heat on my face, but all that was getting farther away. Then I don't remember. Then it started getting closer again, the same feelings coming back bit by bit. When I felt like I could, I sat up slowly so I didn't give myself a head rush and reclined on the couch after that, sipping water until I felt better. Story 72 period pain. I used to quite regularly as teen and my 20s with my period. Now in my early 40s I started getting blackouts with period ovulation pain. That's where you start to feel very very weak and on the point of eyesight changes and hearing changes, but you don't actually pass out. Also I go through extreme temperature changes when it happens, like I come out in a cold sweat or intense heat. Also get extreme nausea to the point I actually vomit or get intense feelings like I'm going to get sick. It's fantastic. Been female. Story 73 was sick with something that gave me a bit of a fever. It was the middle of summer at the time as well. Decided it was a good idea to have a hot bath. I've always preferred really hot water. Got out. Next thing I know I'm lying on the bathroom floor. Story 74 I did not eat. I did not drink water. I was working grill in McDonald's which did not allow us to have breaks nor water. I had eaten since breakfast 6 hours into the shift and was literally just about to go on a very late lunch due to short-staff high school graduations that week, so I was more than happy to cover so the young folks could go celebrate. Normally this is not an issue for me as I don't usually eat or drink water in any form of a normal healthy person's basis. And for months, it had not been an issue. Problem was, I had been solo grill for 6 hours on a 102-degree day. I was not feeling super good that day and was pushing a little hard, passed out. Manager wakes me up. Has the audacity to ask me, "Can you stay?" As I am actively texting my EMT friend to pick me up and check for a concussion. I was only out for a few minutes and I had a bruise from slamming into the serving slot area where we kept food after it was cooked. Everything you eat is not freshly made and often overkept and bacteria-ridden. I quit a few months later after same manager made me grill, take orders, and clean. She gave her favorites days off whenever they wanted. Got a chiller job and now I'm in one where I am safe. Admittedly, I loved working grill. Did I always smell like a gym room meeting a hot dog stand? Yes, but I really did enjoy the fast pace. The people on the other hand I hope rot. Story 75. I was like 7 and my pinky got dislocated while riding my scooter. I was in shock and ran to my mom and I apparently passed out right after I showed her, but I don't remember it at all.